Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the goddamn internet. And today we're gonna be taking a look at psionics, okay? The process of psionics, the versions of psionics. For example, CE5, got psionics from Skywatchers. And in particular, we're gonna focus more on the Skywatcher aspect, okay? And Jake Barber has went into some depth in describing this process, Skywatcher's process specifically. They have specialized equipment supposedly, and we're going to be checking out every aspect of this. And we always do daily uploads, subscribe, notifications on, like, comment, and share. This helps the absolute most. And then, without further ado, get your snacks, get your popcorn, because today's an absolute banger, and you're gonna want to stay till the end, because the best parts are there.
To Jake Barber, who I was hoping would be live with us today, but only a few days ago he told Ross and I, and it was Ross that set up the arrangement with Jake, that he's been called out into the desert. And so we quickly put together an interview. So Georg will play the interview. And I asked him the same question I've asked Ross and all of you. What to him is psionics?
So it actually seems like a common trend that people experiencing these weird phenomena, or people knowing about gift sites, etc., these things usually happen in the desert where there's not many people around, and I wonder why that is.
To explain in your own way what you mean by psionics.
For sure. Yeah, psionics, it's kind of a fun word. What do I mean by psionics? Well, I can share what my understanding of it is. Psionics, I think, let me back up and say that, I didn't get into this world of psionics or consciousness, through the front door, let's say. It wasn't something I was pursuing or that I had a background in educationally. I came in through a window, if you follow me with that analogy. And so I took an interest in it because of my own experience that happened at a very unexpected time in my life. But since then is when I've really began to explore what that really does mean. And I'm excited to share that with others. And my message is one of invitation, not education. I'm not here to insist or sell people on the idea they should take my interpretation of my experiences and my subsequent education through the pursuit of knowledge of and personal understanding of what it means. But I want to invite everyone to get out there and play with this thing, because what's beautiful is that it's available to everyone. And one of the analogies that's helped me look at this is the idea of the World Wide Web. Like, if you think of consciousness as the World Wide Web, and the degree to which we can play within that field of consciousness is something like psionics, then I think you're on a good track. And it might not, I've thought about this recently, it might not even be an analogy. It might like literally be a form of digital intelligence or digital consciousness that the World Wide Web might be evolving into. That's yet to be determined.
Okay, now we're getting into some weird territories, okay? Digital intelligence, that, like, us being able to connect to a web page and then comparing that to doing it with your mind. Is there a source code? Is there an inspect option within this whole infrastructure? Like, what does that even mean? There's so many questions that arise when Barber is saying these types of things, where basically, like, the World Wide Web is the egg. Like, what is that? What is the egg in this scenario, if that were true, right? Let me know what you think down below.
But why is this hard to understand, or why is it abstract for people? Again, this is where I think analogies are helpful. So if you think of a field of consciousness like the internet, it's around us all the time. It's full of information. It's full. It's a two-way thing. People contribute. You can upload to it. You could download from it, but you can't see it. Like I couldn't point to it here in this room. And so our ability to connect to that World Wide Web is done through something like a Wi-Fi connection. And I think some of the challenges, even with the practical applications of that, are rooted in our own ego. You could think of our ego like a smartphone. Let's say you have the latest version of the Apple smartphone, and you're like, this is the smartest phone there is. It's got all these widgets on it. It's got this much gigabyte. It's got this fancy of a camera. But for some reason, you're still not able to use it to tap into the field of consciousness. Well, I would say that that's because you're in airplane mode. And so people need to learn how to activate the Wi-Fi on their cell phone to tap into this field of consciousness. So, you know, it also helps for me to think about, you know, the difference between our intelligence, our knowledge, our wisdom, and then our intuition. So intuition is a word that we find ourselves using a lot when we talk about consciousness. And why I think that is because...
So intuition is a really frustrating topic because it's really weird to think about, you know, make sense of. You might think when one of your friends are looking at you, you turn around and see they're looking at you, right? Is that intuition? Or is intuition like, you know, things you can notice or sense that you did not necessarily see or hear? So that's a very odd thing to conceptualize, right? I do not know if I entirely believe in that, but it's very common in this story and field.
His intuition's a little bit different than the first three. You know, someone with good intuition or a high level of knowledge or a high level of intelligence or a high level of wisdom, you would probably in general say, hey, those are smart people. Like what makes people smart, like the smartphone. And I think it's important to kind of differentiate between those four. And this is what I have done that has helped me out a lot. You know, when you think of knowledge, let's just say is like rote information. You have the ability to retain and share knowledge. Like you could go on Jeopardy and clear all the categories on Jeopardy. That's rote knowledge. But the practical application of that knowledge is something different. So that moves us more into like, well, you're smart, but you're not very intelligent. Is that possible? Perhaps, because I look at intelligence more as like a set of problem solving skills. You can solve problems. And then the other category over here, wisdom. Well, what is wisdom and how is that different than knowledge and intelligence? Well, wisdom to me seems to be something like the ability to make good decisions, fruitful decisions. And then lastly, well, intuition. How would you differentiate intuition? And intuition is something like being able to make the right decision at the right time. And it's something like this internal bell. It's how I think of it, that can ring true inside of your being. And when something rings true, there's really no explanation as to why you're attracted or oriented to it, but it's leading you a certain way. And so I feel every human has this bell that can ring true inside of them, and that's your intuition, and it can drive decision making. So, you know, to pull this back to, you know, what is psionics? I think psionics is our ability to play within the consciousness field for desired outcomes, rather than just connect to it.
But I mean, like, everyone uses intuition when making any choice or, you know, doing anything really. They do what feels right to them, so that's their intuition. But that doesn't automatically always make them right. So I don't know, I find this a bit conflicting and confusing, right? And this whole idea and mindset of for everyone it's unique, for everyone it's your own. You gotta, you know, it's like such hippie tree hugging talk. It's really hard to take seriously and sincerely, because how's that even, you know, it's really odd. You should share some tips. There should be some way to get concrete evidence, and that is Skywatchers bringing down NHI and showing it to the world. Bring down an egg. You can control them.
So again, to stick with this analogy, the World Wide Web, imagine, okay, you figured this out, you've connected to the field of consciousness, and I'll talk about how, crudely, how I understand to do that and what's been successful for me so that other people can try this on their own. But imagine you're connected and you get a Google search bar. You have to put something in that search bar. You're connected, but you have to have some intention. And intention is a really important thing, because without intention, you have no driving force. And
Okay, so is where this is going that these interdimensional creatures or UAP, whatever the fuck it is, can read and interpret intention even when we can't even notice them? Is that the type of intuition difference? How do they know your intent, and how do we like give off vibrations that they can sense that we can't? What does that even mean, right?
And if we consider that maybe every living thing in the universe has access to this consciousness field, you need to bring intention in order to find what you're looking for. So
and if we're all connected to this fucking internet that nobody actually can use or see, how does that benefit us if we're connected in that way? Because we're not aware that we're connected in that way. Is that where intuition comes from, or is the, like there's so many questions that he just does not even consider.
You have to populate that search bar with something. And so bringing some good intentions, what you consider good, which at the most fundamental level, without getting, to angels and demons on you, is just to go there with the intent that it's going to be worthwhile and you're going to find something that is worthwhile to you. And I think finding that space is really important if you're going to try and connect to the field of consciousness. There's several ways to do it. I mean, meditation comes up a lot.
Meditation. Okay, so if this was like this really cool interdimensional communication, World Wide Web, right? Then monks, people that do this traditional things where they sit and meditate, and they even turn into statues, right? They die like that. They sit like that for so long, don't eat, don't drink, nothing. I don't know how accurate it is, how healthy it is, or what actually happens. But the cultures that did this / do this, they are not rich countries. So does that mean that, I don't even know what the fuck that means. What is the benefit? Just fucking dying and not living your life, right? I don't even know how.
Conversation, you can meditate. And for me, it's like, well, what does meditation look like? How do we find our own consciousness? How do we separate from our observer point of view inside our own head when thoughts are coming in, where they're coming from? Is this my intellect? Is this my knowledge system? Is this my wisdom? Is this something that's inside my head that can be tracked? Or is this something that's coming from an external source? And this is where I find meditation is so valuable, because meditation could be thought of as something like creating a defensible space in your mind that is like blacked out, where you are quieting, or you're at least starting by observing your own thoughts and then trying to source the origin of those thoughts. Because we all have thoughts, some of the most easy sources to identify are things that are consistent with our instincts. Like, am I thinking about food? Well, I'm hungry. Am I thinking about food, survival? Am I thinking about procreation, defending myself? Those are all thoughts that will probably populate our head, from the limbic portion of our brain. Then we have other thoughts, which are like intelligent thoughts, are these things we have learned that fascinate us, that puzzles we like solving. That's our intelligence at play, and we can source those. But when you get really good at creating this defensible space and being able to identify thoughts and push away thoughts that you can identify as coming from some internal origin, what gets really interesting is that you'll begin to have thoughts or ideas that you can't source the outcome from. And I believe those are coming from through a conduit of intuition. And when you're applying that intuition, that connection, I think you're in the purest form of Wi-Fi connection to the consciousness field, which is where exciting things start to happen, if any of that makes sense.
It barely does, if we're honest. Just a bunch of words, some reasoning, and I don't even know. So if there's like 7, methods, CE5, we know, the Skywatcher method, what are the others? Meditation, which types of meditation? What is there a specific guide? Like, is someone going to provide this and not be a greer that wants to charge us for all this shit, right?
Yeah, then that's the realm of remote viewing, remote perception, for example, that with intent, one can see objects hidden, under a pillow in another room or on the other side of the world. So this is very important because you're identifying psionics as the relationship between us and this larger field of consciousness, and our ability to align with it and enter it and go places
And go places.
and interact with beings like extraterrestrials, NHI, that communicate through mental telepathy, and they're fluent in the language of consciousness.
They are.
And we have to become fluent in the language of consciousness in order to engage in intelligible communication.
When you're unemployed as is looking for a job, they always ask you what language you speak, and you got to say basic, none, or fluent. So imagine in the future when we unlock this fucking abilities, right? We can say telepathic communication fluent. Okay, so